Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Dr. Shealy, are you blessed?
Have I ever not been blessed?
Oh, jeez. You know, Dr. Shealy, I had a chance to watch the alleged debates last night, or the debate with the vice presidential candidates. Did you have a chance to see that?
Vince, I wouldn't watch any of that stuff. I'm sorry. I just find it so obnoxiously boring.
Yeah. Well, I took my pain medicine. I took my pain medicine before it started. And you know, I was interested in it. I'll tell you why. When we lived in Virginia, we lived just down the road from Longwood University, and that's where the event was held last night. And it reminds me of a story. I was telling John, our engineer, this. Back in the 90s, our daughter was in this dance class, and like the whole town would participate in. The girls would learn how to dance, and they had a dance recital at Longwood University, and it was in Jarman Auditorium. It's a huge, wonderful auditorium. And by the way, Longwood University is in Farmville, Virginia. It's a magnificent campus. Well, the dance recital was starting to get underway, and we saw all of our friends there from our little town. I mean, it was the big deal that if there were going to be a burglary or a series of burglaries, that would be the night to do it, because everybody from our town that had children went to the dance recital, and the grandmothers, grandfathers, and their aunts and uncles, everybody went. So our little town cleared out, and we all headed for Farmville, Virginia, and we were in this Jarman Auditorium. Well, everything was going great. Our two boys were with us, and our 3-year-old boy saw his sister on stage, and he said, "There's my sister," and he jumped out of his seat, ran down the aisle, and walked up on the stage. And as I saw this, Mrs. Finelli saw it at the same time. It's like, we can't catch him. He's too far ahead of us. And then he was on stage, and you know, she looked at me. We were in our seats, and I said, "Well, you need to go get him." And she looked at me like, "No way, you go get him." So it was my turn, and I went and got him, and there was this applause, and so one of the highlights of the show was our son running up on stage, totally spontaneously, and I don't know if he knew what he was going to do once he got there, but he was there, and that was my little story about Longwood University. Well, there's another story I have. Our son, we homeschooled our children, and one of our boys wanted to take some classes. He was a young teenager, and he wanted to take a history class, military history. And he really liked the professor or the instructor of this history class. And so he wanted to bring in, it was like show and tell, some, you know, do you have any artifacts or souvenirs or display items that you can bring in as a result of what happened in military history? So our son decided he wanted to bring in an example of a rifle from World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. So the teacher said, that'd be great. That'd be great. You can bring these rifles in. And so I called the security office and I said, our son wants to bring these in. It's approved by the instructor. And the police, the university police said, well, just bring them in. And I said, are you serious? You don't have any problem with me bringing in 3 rifles on campus? And he said, no, it's okay. So I said, I'll tell you what, I just don't feel comfortable because, generally speaking, campuses are not friendly to AR-15s, M1 Garands, 30-06 bolt-action rifles. And so I asked the sergeant if I brought them to his police station and if he would accompany me and them to campus and escort us off when they were done with the show and tell. And that's what we did. But, it's interesting how things have changed. Can you imagine bringing, 3 rifles onto a campus today?
Even a photograph today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and this was at Longwood. This was at Longwood University, the same university where the vice presidential debate was held. Well, I'd like to share with you my thoughts, Dr. Shealy, in our class about the debate. It won't take too long. As a matter of fact, I couldn't watch the whole thing. I literally, I'm thinking as an investigative journalist or investigative broadcaster, I should be paying attention to this. It was painful. It really was. And so Mike Pence was there, and he acted more presidential, more calm, more collected than Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine was on the attack. He was like nonstop interrupting Mike Pence. He was antagonistic, and he just kept talking, and he just couldn't be quiet. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And what I was thinking about was how would our friends in other countries look at this guy, Tim Kaine? Would they look at him and say, he's an arrogant bully? And that's what came to my mind. And it's not just because I would prefer Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. I'm just thinking that how would these guys have... Tim Kaine seemed to have forgotten manners. How do you get to be a vice presidential candidate and have forgotten your manners? So after 30 minutes, I shut down the debate tab on my PC. But my takeaway from this is Tim Kaine showed me he's a bully, just like his proposed boss, Hillary Clinton, is a bully, someone whom I do not want representing the country where I live. I don't want him. I don't want him because he's just not polite. He's just...
Well, what would you expect with Hillary at the top?
Well, you would expect someone who would throw White House furniture around, fire staff.
Scream at the Secret Service.
Yes.
Steal things from the White House.
Yeah, you're right. The Clintons felt that they should unload some of the White House's furniture, which would be our furniture, and steal it. Literally steal public property from the White House. That's what they did when they left. Can you imagine? And we're looking at that as someone who would be even a contender for the White House? You're absolutely right.
It's pretty awful. I can't imagine. Unequivocally, we'll have a civil war if she's elected.
Well, Dr. Shealy, I was at a convention, and I think there are plenty of people who are looking forward to it. They've just had it, literally have had it with our politicians, these lying individuals who congenital liars. We talked about that here on the broadcast, that we believe that Hillary Clinton is a congenital liar, a liar from birth, enhanced by experience and enhanced by people who surround her. Who would want to surround Hillary Clinton? And here's the question. If you took away her power, who would want to be near her? I theorize no one would want to be near her. It's like people who are friends of those who are very, very wealthy, and they're friends because they have wealth, but take away the wealth and there go the friends. And I think that's the analogy with Hillary Clinton. You take away her power and the threats that she can unleash. Who the heck would want to be close to her? Dr. Shealy, one of the things that...
perfect like us. But they could try.
Well, and I felt bad for the moderator. She had trouble keeping the debate on track because Tim Kaine would just talk over Mike Pence, and then Mike Pence started. The two of these debaters or alleged debaters were talking over each other. Neither one of them would yield, and I'm thinking, gosh, of the two, Mike Pence clearly won the debate in terms of acting presidential and use of vocabulary. But wow, we have really we've lost our statesman. Where can we find a statesman?
Well,
I haven't seen one in a long time.
Then, do you know anything in this country which is running reasonably well? I mean, the whole conspiracy, if you will, of medicine is just as bad as the freaking government.
Okay. Well, that was something that I wanted to chat with you about today.
Because, did you realize that 46 years ago, I came to the conclusion that medicine in general sucks. I'm being as kind as I can because I'm on the air. But even back then, in 1970, I felt that virtually everything that was being done for chronic problems was unhealthy. It was wrong, damaging. Now, acute medicine is good. I give it maybe a B overall, but it's the best we've got. But once you pass the acute stage, it really sucks. The interesting thing about it is I started writing about this in 1970, and it hasn't changed. And incidentally, my latest book, Blueprint for Holistic Healing, just came out, which summarizes the whole thing better than anything I've done so far.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, and if you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933 to be on the air with Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, and Dr. Shealy has a new book, and it's Blueprint for Holistic Healing, your practical guide to body, mind, spirit, health. Dr. Shealy, can you tell us a little bit about this book, please?
Well, actually, it is indeed a summary of what I have learned, experienced, and come to embrace over the last 45 years. It lays out, in my opinion, first of all, what is holism? I think most people may not know, but the word holistic was created back in the 1920s by Jan Smuts, who was the Prime Minister of South Africa. And he wrote a magnificent book, Holism and Evolution, in which he integrated everything known in science and contemporary physics at that particular time. It was a brilliant, brilliant book. And that's where the idea of holism, that is, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and you've got to include the spiritual dimension, or you're out on a limb. And so this
Dr. Shealy, I'm reading.
I'm sorry?
This is your latest book.
That is right. It just came out a week ago.
Let me read a little bit that I found on Amazon. It says about the author. C. Norman Shealy, M.D., Ph.D., is a neurosurgeon, psychologist, and founding president of the American Holistic Medical Association. For over 3 decades, he's been at the forefront of alternative medicine and alternative healthcare. He holds 10 patents for innovative discoveries in medicine, has published more than 300 articles, and authored more than 25 books. Well, it's more than 32 books, isn't it?
Actually, this is number 35.
35. Yep. He is the co-founder of the American Board of Scientific Medical Intuition, and perhaps the world's foremost medical expert on medical intuition. And that's Dr. Norman Shealy. And it doesn't mention that you've been broadcasting for decades, that you're a Native American medicine man, and you have multiple PhDs, and that you're a Surgeon of the Year.
It is interesting, Vince, but the important thing is not my degrees and stuff like that, but the whole concept of what is important for health. And what is important for health is the number one thing that is missing in this country is personal responsibility for everything that you do. You know, if everyone just took personal responsibility for their habits, we would cut disease by a minimum of 75%. Life expectancy would increase 20 or more years within 25 years. So it isn't just that the medical profession and the approach to these diseases is wrong and inadequate and often worsening, but the people themselves bring on their illnesses because they won't just have common sense. Now, you and I mean, the essence of being prepared is you don't prepare just for horrible emergencies, you prepare day to day. I mean, if I remember correctly, the number one thing of a Boy Scout that I was taught 70 plus years ago is be prepared. And be prepared means you eat right, you exercise right, you sleep right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've lost that in this country. And I think it started it's certainly not later than right after World War II, when government began to offer increasing take care of you even if you don't take care of yourself.
Well, that all makes sense to me. And I was at a convention recently where people were involved in learning about preparedness. And I was teaching long-term strategies. And some of our other instructors were teaching about long-term strategies. And there was another seminar that was teaching about you're all going to die if you don't do this right now. And the fear that people had drove them to a seminar where they could be even more afraid. Dr. Shealy, for those who are interested in obtaining a copy of your latest book, Blueprint for Holistic Healing, Your Practical Guide to Body, Mind, Spirit, Health, it's paperback. It's very inexpensive. It's $9.49 as a paperback at Amazon. Is that the best way to get it, or can they get it directly from you, or what do you recommend?
They can get it from me. Theoretically, the list price is $16.95. So Amazon, as often, is selling it at rock bottom price.
Mm-hmm. Can a person obtain an autographed copy from you?
Yeah, they would have to get that from our website. If they ordered that and just ask for it, they can.
Okay.
And tonight,
so class, if you're
in Springfield, you can get it at the Doubletree Hotel. I'll be giving my talk on Blueprint for Holistic Healing at the Doubletree Hotel from 6 to 7, and autographed copies afterwards.
Is that tonight?
Yep. Wednesday night, tonight.
Wow. I remember being at the Doubletree Hotel with you. You and I and Dan Swindell were on stage together, and actually we were even broadcasting together. And I remember that you had this band around your head, and you were plugged in to what, Dr. Shealy? You were
the Liz cranial stimulator, probably.
Yeah, Liz cranial stimulator. Now, was I at an unfair disadvantage because you were wearing that and I wasn't?
Vince, you're never an unfair disadvantage. You and I can hold our own, period.
I remember seeing you with that and thinking, wow, how come they didn't give those out at the door? How come we all didn't get one of those? But that was a lot of fun. So that's at the Doubletree Hotel in Springfield, Missouri, and that is 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock tonight?
Exactly.
Okay, is there a charge, Dr. Shealy?
No charge.
No charge. So you're providing this as a service to the village. And when those who attend, what will they learn, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I think they'll learn, number one, why it is their responsibility to take care of themselves so they don't fall into the huge crack in the medical profession, and how they can optimize their health and longevity.
Okay. And if those who are paying attention to what you say tonight actually follow your recommendations to achieve longer health and longevity, what is your confidence that they will actually achieve that?
Oh, I'll give you a 98% confidence that they can achieve it. You know, we got to recognize there are accidents, there are other things that happen, but essentially, the important thing is conservatively, 75 to 80% of all disease occurs because people do not take care of themselves. And the habits are so simple. Do not be overweight. Do not smoke. Eat 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Exercise 30 minutes, a minimum of 5 days a week, and sleep 7 or 8 hours every day. That's it. That's all it takes. If those common sense habits were universal, within 25 years, life expectancy would be 100 years average, and we would cut disease, hospitalizations, the need for medical treatment at all by a minimum of 75%.
Dr. Shealy, I've read so many articles about couch potatoes, those who really have a lifestyle without much movement, sit behind computers and so forth, and that's what they do until they have a bathroom break, and then a lunch break, and then an afternoon break, and then go home, and sit in their car, and then breathe the fumes. When someone goes into the hospital, and let's say they have a recovery, and maybe they're in the hospital for 3, 4, 5 days a week, how much damage does just being in bed do? Forget the surgery or whatever the reason for being in the hospital. Just lying around.
The equivalent of lying in bed for 1 week is equal, minimum, to fracturing your leg, your hip.
Wow.
That's how bad it is. Hans Selye, the great stress research physician, demonstrated this 60 years ago.
So just getting in that lazy boy and just reclining every day for, 3 hours in front of the blue TV screen.
Well, that doubles the problem if you're watching the TV while doing it, in my opinion, because that makes you brain dead.
Yeah.
You can't watch that stuff and have a brain that's really working right.
Is that because you're being force-fed, Dr. Shealy, and you don't have to think too much? You can put your mind in park as compared to reading where you have to use your imagination?
It puts you in a hypnotic trance.
Back 20, 30 years ago, I remember saying to people with whom I worked, at the bank, or before, I would say, if you gave a quiz to someone, and this would be the position of the person before watching TV, I just have it on to, I just want to have the noise in the background. I like having that noise. But if you ask the person during a television show, you didn't start talking to them. They go, "Shh, listen, no, this is important. This is the important part. This is the important part. Not now, later. And then after it's all over, you say, I didn't get a chance to watch that with you, but, while you were watching it, what was the plot? What was the storyline? What was it about? They couldn't tell you. They were, and I believe you're absolutely correct, they were put in a trance in front of that screen, and they had no idea, when it's all done, they have no idea what they saw. Literally.
That's right. It is mind damaging.
And who doesn't have a TV or 2 or 3 or 4 in their houses? And then, not only that, if you look at the these Christmas present scuffles into stores where people are fighting over these doorbuster prices, alleged doorbuster prices, they're going after televisions. They got to have these more televisions, bigger televisions, to watch what? Wow, what a waste of time! What a serious waste of time.
I mean, I have one, but I probably watch it maybe an hour a month. I turn on Antiques Roadshow maybe once a month. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by the way, if I'm not mistaken, Antiques Roadshow has been involved in some controversy, or programs like that have been involved in controversy because of manipulation of prices, or buying things for low prices, or praising low, or those kinds of things.
Yeah. It's like everything else. If you don't do it yourself, you can't trust it.
Yeah. Dr. Shealy, as you were mentioning this, I was thinking about different types of personalities, and I don't know if I can explain this the way I should, but I was wondering if we are genetically predisposed to having a certain type of personality. For example, I know some people over the years, over my lifetime, who would say, you know what, I just want to get along. I just want to go along to get along. So if I have to do something I really don't want to do, that's okay, because I just want to get along. And then you have other people who are warriors, and they don't want to fight, but gosh, when their backs are against the wall and there's no way out, they'll fight. And then you have some other people who might be what we call worker bees, and they're predisposed to just going to work and being a drone and just being part of the herd. And then there are people who seem to be intellectuals, and they want to study, and they want to be involved in science and medicine, and they want to excel, and they want to learn how things work. And they're really, really bright people. Is that true? Are we really genetically predisposed to be one kind of a personality or another? Not necessarily with the way I said it, but
there's two major factors. One is genes, of course, and the other is your family. Because no matter what your genetic background, if you happen to have chosen a family that is nurturing versus a family that is abusive or negligent, you're going to be a different person when you grow up. My favorite statement about my family is, I did not have the courage to choose abusive parents. Now, I did not know your father, but knowing your mother, I could say you did the same.
Yes. Yeah. My father never hit me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm talking about support, nurturing, etc. Right. And for men, of course, it's very interesting that in general, men are more successful if they have a closer emotional bonding with mother, and women are more successful if they have a closer bonding with father.
Interesting. And do we know why that is, Dr. Shealy?
Well, yes, I think the men need the softness of a loving mother. Our nature, testosterone inherently makes us somewhat aggressive. I mean, it's just part of being a male. And so having a closer emotional bonding with mother softens that a bit. For women, of course, what they need is a little more toughness because, in general, for 5,000 years, women have been put down. And I've often said, if I were a woman, I'd be the most flaming feminist in the world. I'd be angry as hell.
Mm-hmm. When we come back, can we talk about Viagra? And the reason I mention that is I met a man over the weekend, and we were talking about all kinds of things, rifle, pistol, shotgun, and then all of a sudden he mentioned the cost of medicine, and then he mentioned Viagra. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, normshealy.com, and if you'd like to get a copy of the free newsletter, just go to normshealy.com and you can sign up for the same one that I get. Dr. Shealy, Viagra. I was chatting with a man I met at an event over the weekend, and we were talking about all kinds of things. And all of a sudden, he mentioned, the price of medicine, and he said that Viagra is selling for $50 a pill. What is Viagra? How does it work?
Well, Viagra is the first of several drugs that were introduced over the last 2 decades for people with erectile dysfunction, or people having a hard time getting a hard on, so to speak. And it does seem to work for most people, but actually the best one, far better in clinical trials, is Cialis, or tadalafil. Now, most men have some difficulty compared to age 20 by the time they're 50. Men with any illness, whether it's diabetes or heart disease or any significant illness, have increasingly greater problems with erectile dysfunction. And it goes together with high blood pressure, it goes with problems with atherosclerosis. But if you take good care of yourself, Vinny, I mean, at 84, I could say that I'm as horny and functional as I was at age 20. And I think that's the way life is meant to be. You're supposed to stay healthy and functional as long as you live.
Well, I've heard of men in remote regions of the world becoming fathers at 80 plus.
Exactly.
But not in New York City, not in Los Angeles.
It's difficult to be healthy in a big city. I mean, you and I would not want to live in Sparta, let alone in Springfield.
Right. Right. Dr. Shealy, I was on my way to Kansas City, Missouri, on Friday, and there was a traffic jam, probably caused by an accident outside of Kansas City. And I was in my pickup truck, and it was bumper to bumper, side to side for a long time. And I have to tell you that I haven't felt well after that. I mean, just sitting in that. It's like I had my face up to the tailpipe of the cars around me. It was terrible. And there's no way out. There's no way out. You just can't. There's no place to go.
No question. Today's world is toxic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we are shortening our lives by being in the exhaust of the vehicles in front of us and around us. And also, I mean, that's just one threat, right? What about stress?
Damaging our spine by driving cars. The Lord Brain, one of the great British neurologists, back in the 50s, wrote an article about the impact of the automobile. I mean, we're talking about 70 years ago. The impact of the automobile on increasing osteoarthritis of the cervical spine because of stopping and starting.
Very interesting. And I remember learning about Mercedes seats in the Mercedes-Benz decades ago of being some of the best seats for preserving the spine, for helping to minimize the damage to the spine. I remember hearing people who had them would say, "Yeah, they've got really, really great seats, and they're not soft and cushy. They're firm, and they've got lots of support." Just a thought, Dr. Shealy. I'm looking forward to talking about Fukushima when we come back, because here's the headline: Fukushima radiation has contaminated the entire Pacific Ocean, and it's going to get worse. Let's talk about that when we come back. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, normshealy.com. I'm Vincent Finelli. This is USA Prepares. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Norman Shealy. And if you'd like to sign up for the same newsletter that I get multiple times per week, you can go to normshealy.com, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, many years ago, I was on the air right after the Fukushima disaster, and I said that Fukushima is the worst man-made disaster since Noah's flood. And I've been standing by this, and I've been, ridiculed at times. People thought I was nuts. Well, here's an article on zerohedge.com, and it says Fukushima radiation has contaminated the entire Pacific Ocean, and it's going to get worse. And I'd like to read a little bit of this, and I'd love to hear your comment about what you think about this contamination and what we can do about it, because I believe this is one of the worst, I believe it is the worst man-made disaster since Noah's flood. And so the article, it's posted at usaprepares.com at page number 1. It says, the nuclear disaster has contaminated the world's largest ocean in only 5 years, and it's still leaking 300 tons of radioactive waste every day. What was the most dangerous nuclear disaster in world history? Most people would say it was Chernobyl, the Chernobyl disaster in Ukraine, but they'd be wrong. In 2011, an earthquake believed to be the aftershock of a 2010 earthquake in Chile created a tsunami that caused a meltdown at the TEPCO nuclear reactor plant in Fukushima, Japan. 3 nuclear reactors melted down, and what happened next was the largest release of radiation into the water in the history of the world. Over the next 3 months, radioactive chemicals, some in even greater quantities than Chernobyl, leaked in the Pacific Ocean. However, the numbers may actually be much higher, as Japanese official estimates have been proven by several scientists to be flawed in recent years. If that weren't bad enough, Fukushima continues to leak an astounding 300 tons of radioactive waste into the Pacific every day. It will continue to do so indefinitely, as the source of the leak cannot be sealed, as it is inaccessible to both humans and robots due to extremely high temperatures. It should come as no surprise, then, that Fukushima has contaminated the entire Pacific Ocean in just 5 years. This could easily be the worst environmental disaster in human history, and it's almost never talked about by politicians, establishment scientists, or the news. It's interesting to note that TEPCO, a partner with General Electric, also known as GE, one of the largest companies in the world, which has considerable control over numerous news corporations and politicians alike. Could this possibly explain the lack of news coverage Fukushima has received in the last 5 years? There's also evidence that GE knew about the port. Yes, we're here, Dr. Shealy. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I just heard a phone ring.
Okay. There's also evidence that General Electric knew about the poor condition of the Fukushima reactors for decades and did nothing. This led to 1,400 Japanese citizens to sue General Electric for their role in the Fukushima nuclear disaster. And the article continues, even if we can't see radiation itself, some parts of North America's western coast have been feeling the effects for years. Not long after Fukushima, fish in Canada began bleeding from their gills, mouths, eyeballs. These diseases have been ignored by the government and decimated native fish populations, including North Pacific herring. Elsewhere in Canada, independent scientists have measured a 300% increase in the level of radiation. Why is this ignored by the media? Okay, so the article goes on talking about the ecosystem and the impact of Fukushima, and scientists are now saying that the Pacific Ocean, already radioactive, is currently at least 5 to 10 times more radioactive than when the United States government dropped numerous nuclear bombs in the Pacific during World War II. Dr. Shealy, this is, to me, it's terrifying. It's the big story that's hardly ever talked about. And I remember saying that, the day after Fukushima, I was on the air, and I said, so who was it that was in a boat a mile off the coast of Japan and said, hey, this is a great place. Let's litter the coast. Let's litter the coast of Japan with nuclear reactors. I'll put them right here. It's idiotic. It's dangerous.
Then, there's no question that having it near a water stream of any kind is critically stupid. But more stupid than that is creating it in the first place. I think by far the greatest human era in history is creating nuclear energy and then using it for all things to make electricity. That is pure human insanity. And I've been saying that now for 60 years or more. Interestingly, in 1961, I was in Australia when the book On the Beach came out. It was later made into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had this feeling all these decades that we will be lucky if we're not all annihilated by nuclear energy. It is infinite. I mean, the degree of stupidity is mega trillion times greater than any other harm humans have ever done. Just to create it in the first place, but secondly, to have it spewing. Well, there's leaking water in New York. There's radioactivity. There's leaking in North Carolina. There's leaking in Miami, and those aren't talked about either.
There's, I've talked to some of our instructors, and we believe that all the reactors leak at some level. And you mentioned On the Beach, and I saw that movie. It was 1959.
Yeah,
and it was a movie.
Was the book that early? Okay, it was 661 when I read the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing the movie as an old movie, and I'll tell you, it is. It's unforgettable. It's unforgettable what you will see about the end of life. The end of life because of nuclear radiation. And so it was thought that this could happen in 1959. And it was the book and the movie. So I suggest as homework, you all consider On the Beach. On the Beach. And I'll post a link to more information about On the Beach. And it was rated, looks like 3.5 stars out of 5. It was a drama. And it's quite an eye-opener.
Actually, the book was published in 57. The movie did come out in 59.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to find, is there a way that we can watch this without buying it? I'll see if I can find something about that. So, Dr. Shealy, what do we do about the radiation that, the entire Pacific Ocean, as we just reported, is contaminated, okay, at some level, and it's going to get worse. And we talked about how...
You could never have paid me to live in California, especially. And now I think nobody in their right mind would live in that state, any of the Western states, because they all abut the Pacific Ocean. And the interesting thing is I haven't been able to find any clear information, but obviously it's gotten as far north as Alaska by now. Mm-hmm. Theoretically, originally they said the stream was going south, so it went in Alaska. But after 5 years, I suspect it's just as contaminated as the rest of the Pacific.
Mm-hmm. I was talking with one of our instructors, Miles, and we were talking about the Wigner effect. Boy, these commercials you go to a website and these commercials just pop up in front of what you're trying to read. Quite annoying. The Wigner effect, Wigner effect, named for its discoverer, Eugene Wigner, also known as the decomposition effect or Wigner's disease. It's the displacement of atoms caused by neutron radiation. And a way of thinking about this is things that we use in our life decay as a result of nuclear radiation. Equipment failures are increased as a result of the Wigner effect. And we talked about steel-belted radial tires, where the belts seem to have a problem and the tires blow out, or hydraulic hoses fail, and so forth. And we were talking about some of the equipment that's used on airplanes is failing at an increasing rate. So it's here. It absolutely is here. More disease is here. I mentioned in one of my seminars over the last weekend, does anyone know of any family at all that doesn't have cancer? And no one knows of a family that they can say, yeah, I know of one. There's no cancer in that family. It's in every single family. Dr. Shealy and I will be right back. And let's talk, Dr. Shealy, about what can we do to minimize the effects of radiation on our bodies. What can we do to fend off cancer? What do we do to live a little longer in this toxic world that we've created for ourselves? Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about Fukushima, we're talking about radiation, we're talking about the toxins. What do we do to protect ourselves? Because, as I mentioned, I asked our seminar group when I was speaking over the weekend, does anyone know of any family that doesn't have cancer? And no one did. No one responded. Yeah, I know a family that does not have cancer. No one was able to say that. What do we do about the radiation, Dr. Shealy?
Well, first of all, you live as far away from nuclear generators as possible, and that is a major chore. Secondly, the only single thing you can do is take some iodine. I think we need that anyway. We've known that for at least 30 years, that we need much more iodine than the average American is getting. At least 80% of people are deficient in that. And, of course, the organ that is most damaged easily by radiation is the thyroid gland. So everybody should be taking at least one iodoral or 12.5 milligrams once a week. That's the minimum, just to sustain some protection for your thyroid gland. Beyond that, you have the best habits you can and detach, because you and I as individuals can't stop it. If all the governments in the world suddenly agreed that nuclear energy is stupid, it would probably take 30 or 40 years to get it all somehow somehow partially contained.
And you mentioned partially contained, and that's a really good point, because if you're putting radiation inside a container and you have the Wigner effect, it's self-defeating, because the radiation will destroy the container, and then ultimately it will leak. And we know of the stories of radioactive waste from the Hanford plant in the state of Washington in the United States that has leaked all over the Hanford Reservation for the production of materials used in the weapons that we released on Japan during World War II, allegedly to end World War II more quickly. We've contaminated part of our own country, and of course Japan. And now we've got Fukushima releasing radioactive waste into the Pacific Ocean, 300 tons a day, and it has been doing that for about 5 years. And so we have starfish that are deformed. We have other fish that are deformed. We have fish that are dying. We have jellyfish that have problems. It's pretty serious. Pretty serious. You have fish with lesions, bleeding, and then of course we're eating animals that live in the ocean. Not me, but other people are. Dr. Shealy, would you say it's safe to eat fish from the ocean at this point, generally speaking?
No. I don't know about the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, sooner or later, obviously, it's got to begin to contaminate the Atlantic Ocean. They are connected.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I definitely would not want to eat any Pacific fish.
I remember saying to Mrs. Finelli the day after Fukushima, if you'd like to get some tuna, you have to get it today. And get as much packed in oil as you would like, because we don't know when the next tuna will be caught and packed. But today it's probably as safe as it's going to be. And we haven't eaten fish from the ocean since then. That's just something we don't do. I was at a restaurant over the weekend, and I really don't like going to restaurants, but they had shrimp, all kinds of shrimp there at a Chinese restaurant, and I didn't have any because I didn't know where it came from. Not that I'd like it anyway, but that's a huge concern. And what's a concern to me is some of the other foods that are prepared foods for us. For example, we bought a bag of apples, and when I eat apples, I take a very sharp knife and I cut them into slices, because I want to see each slice before I take a bite out of it. And of course, I wash the apple very, very well with water, and then I wipe it clean with a towel to get as many of the toxins as I can off. And what I'm finding is apples now have brown spots on the inside. No wormholes, brown spots on the inside. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, and if you'd like to sign up for his newsletter or get his latest book, normshealy.com, normshealy.com. Newsletter's absolutely free. Dr. Shealy, early this morning I was up and I was in the studio and I was preparing for the broadcast, and I went downstairs to grab some breakfast, and my mom was up, and I said, "Hey, Mom, have you had breakfast?" And she said, "No, not yet." And I said, "Would you like breakfast?" And she said, "Sure, what do you have?" And I said, "We have some steel-cut oats all ready to go, and would you like some oatmeal?" And she said, "Well, let me look at it." And she said, "What's it look like?" And she was coming over to the stove, and I said, well, it looks terrible, but it's good for you. Would you like some?" And she said, "Sure." So here's the question I have for you, Dr. Shealy. A lot of times, I guess we want our food to look appetizing, but appetizing food may not be good for us. I mean, hamburgers at the fast food joints like McDonald's or Burger King. I mean, I've been reading about that, and over the years, how how unhealthy some of that fast food is for us. And, we've talked about fast food being poison for years on the broadcast. How does the way food looks affect us as we get older? Are we more interested in the way it looks? Do our taste buds change as we get older? Is there any evidence to that?
Well, there is some. Interesting, Florence Nightingale, the founder of nursing, emphasized, 150 plus years ago, how important the appearance of the food in the hospitals was to the patient's health, because, all of our senses are interrelated. Smell is critical for many, many things, and sight and smell are, they're almost Siamese twins in their interreactions, if you will. So, appearance is important, and obviously we can be deceived by appearance and even by smell. It can be doctored this one way or another. Real food is the only answer, and obviously you can make it look appealing. I have never been convinced that steel-cut oats are any better than rolled oats, but I don't know that. I've never actually looked up to see if there's any scientific evidence of, quality difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they certainly take a lot longer, about 20 minutes to prepare in a pan. Steel-cut oats, rolled oats is certainly faster, and I believe my mom prefers rolled oats cooked in with raisins, and I think she would much prefer that, and so I think that's what she was hoping for, rolled oats with raisins, and that's not what she got this morning. You mentioned eating well, and I have in my hands a container that says Hiland Highland Cranberry Juice Cocktail from Concentrate. This is a container that I kept from the hospital where my mom was treated for pneumonia, and they gave this to her to drink. And I've kept this in the studio, this empty container that I washed out. It's one of these containers you might get, or you might see this type of container at an elementary school for, a little carton of milk. It's a very small one. It's only 4 ounces. And here are the ingredients. It says Highland Cranberry Juice Cocktail, and then in small letters it says from Concentrate. And then it says ingredients. First ingredient, water. Second ingredient, sugar.
Yep.
Third ingredient, cranberry juice concentrate. Natural and artificial flavor. Citric acid, sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate as a preservative, and ascorbic acid. That's it. Dr. Shealy, sugar is the number 2 ingredient. Do you think that this could be good for us?
No, it's junk. It falls into pure junk category.
And I'm looking in the inside of this container, and wherever the wax or plastic seal has been breached, it's stained permanently red. And actually, it's a really bright red, and I've never seen cranberries that color red. So I think, I don't think this could possibly be good for you. I mean, just as you've said. Okay. One of your newsletters talked about disempowering beliefs about money and success. Can you share that with us? This was a download that you could get free, and talks about putting away skepticism, and you can actually improve your life by changing your thoughts. Can you share with us what your thoughts about that are?
Well, interestingly, everything is related to everything in some extent, and the personality trait that determines your lifelong health, your lifelong longevity, and your lifelong income is conscientiousness. Now, I have never tested you, but I can tell you that you are among the more conscientious people that I know. And conscientious means organized and responsible. And ultimately, that's what's most important, because it determines everything else. And I am pretty high on the conscientious scale as well. The interesting thing is that only 6% of people are optimally conscientious, and at least 50% fall into the lower than 50% of possible conscientious behavior. So it's really your be prepared, your be organized, et cetera, personality that determines everything. And ultimately, it determines your income and your health long term.
Is that why I have had such a great deal of difficulty teaching people about, and I didn't use the word conscientious behavior, but what I just said is, why don't you consider being prepared for whatever might happen? And so many people are just not interested. And I don't have, frankly, I don't have the physical strength to drag them all behind me and say,
no,
all right, if I don't. And after a while, after decades, I've decided that I can't drag them all behind me. I can introduce them to it, and if they don't seem to get it really soon, I give up on them, Dr. Shealy. Literally, I'm not kidding. Because I think that if I try to help them all and drag them all behind me, they're going to bring me and my family down with them.
You're absolutely right. None of us can afford the luxury of believing that we have to help everybody. Interestingly, John Powell, a Catholic priest, wrote a wonderful book on unconditional love. He pointed out that your number one requirement is to take care of yourself so that you can help other people and you are not a drag on other people. And he pointed out that you don't have to try to rescue every person who knocks on your door. You only should do what you are physically, mentally, emotionally capable of doing without harming yourself.
I had a chat with this mother and her husband, but mostly with this mother who was at my seminar over the weekend. We talked about other people and in the family, and it's always the same, Dr. Shealy. It's, I've got a lot of outlaws, I've got some in-laws, I've got some relatives and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and children, and they don't believe it. They don't think that anything can happen. They think they're going to be well taken care of by, the system, by corporations, and they don't really need to prepare. And it's an uphill struggle trying to get them involved. And then we talked about, okay, so what would really happen? Well, it's generally the same thing. Well, if anything goes bad, I'm just coming to your house. And so who's coming? Who's coming to that particular prepared person's house? Well, it's their brother and their sister and their children and then their children's girlfriends and boyfriends. And pretty soon it's 40 people. It's not possible. You can't have a dinner party for 2 hours in most houses with 40 people, let alone have them all move in with you, let alone have them eat 3 meals a day. Most people don't have enough silverware or dishes or cups or saucers or glasses for 40 people. I mean, it's just the way it is. We're not prepared for that. And so I don't see how we can do it other than teach them to prepare for themselves, which they don't want to do. It's really frustrating to me. As a matter of fact,
it is. And you do what you could do and you detach from the rest, Vince. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is critically important as a conscientious person not to allow everybody else's slothful behavior to drag you down.
And here's a question that I have, Dr. Shealy. This is a medical question, and it relates to me. I'll read the news multiple times per day. If I'm off the tractor coming in for lunch, or I come in to get another bottle of water to take out with me on the tractor, or whatever reason, if I'll just come into the kitchen, hop on the internet, see if we've been attacked, or if we've been bombed, or there's been some significant news release. And here's one from The Sun. It's called thesun.co.uk. War games. Panic as 2 Russian bombers blast across Europe, causing 4 countries to scramble fighter jets to intercept them. That would be the UK, Norway, France, and Spain, all intercepted Tu-160 aircraft from Russia. So the question I have is, reading all of these horrible things that can happen in the panics and the economy and so forth, do they have an impact on me, and others like me who are interested in what's happening, good, bad, and otherwise? Do they have an impact on our health that we should be concerned with? And let's talk about that when we come back, please. So, Dr. Shealy, many of us check the news multiple times per day, and a lot of the news is alarming and disturbing. All these bad things that are happening, the threats and the toxins and so forth all around us. 360 degrees of threats. Does reading about this have a negative effect on our bodies? That's the question.
Our minds and our bodies. It depends on how much you play the broken record. One of the reasons I don't like to watch the news, I don't watch the news. I think it's important to be aware that it's happening. So I personally do very quickly search through the New York Times headlines every morning. I almost never open one of them and read anything directly. And I do not watch it ever on television or without listening to it under ordinary circumstances on the radio, because it really is. You remember the old children's story about Chicken Little and the sky falling down?
Sure.
And it leads to that kind of consciousness. And I prefer not to have that kind of alarm set off in my brain, mind, body every day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one way is to just quickly read the news or the headlines, see if there's anything that's of significant concern. Maybe read that a little more in detail. Other than that, avoid the big screen for television.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, I suppose if one didn't have anything else, if you were bored with life, you might spend hours trying to find something that was worthy to watch on the tube. I don't need that. I'd rather read a book.
Mm-hmm. How about vitamins and minerals? You hear a lot of times vitamins and minerals, those words all in the same sentence. Can you tell us if, we started to talk about this last week, can vitamins work without the proper content of minerals in our body?
No. Again, everything is rated everything. So a deficiency of a single essential nutrient, which is a whole bunch of things, can actually have a cascading effect on everything in metabolism. Because let's take sugar. We do run our energy primarily on sugar. We can convert protein into sugar, we can convert fat into sugar, and obviously sugar comes in many different forms, including naturally in fruits and some vegetables. But we need, for instance, chromium is an essential, but we need not just chromium, we need vanadium, and we need calcium, and we need magnesium, and on it goes. There is an interrelationship of all of the vitamins and all of the minerals. And a significant excess or a significant deficit can cause many, many, many diseases.
How about those people in high school who crack their knuckles? Is that something that can lead to arthritis in the future? Do we know that? Is it okay to do it? I don't know. I've never done it. I don't know why people do it, but what are your thoughts about cracking your knuckles?
I don't think it's a good habit. I mean, I wouldn't say doing it once in your lifetime is going to harm you, but if you do it every day, you're going to increase your risk of osteoarthritis. No question about it. It's not a good habit.
Okay. Now I was thinking about actors and actresses who have plastic surgery because they don't want to do they don't want to appear that they've gotten older from the previous recording of their appearance or photographs or movies and so forth. But they seem to age horribly after they've had these procedures done. Their faces don't seem to age normally. Is that because the plastics don't age as their skin does? Is that what that's all about?
Well, the problem is they've damaged the underlying collagen and the whole structure of the body. It's the false ego.
Okay. And as far as toothpaste is concerned, a lot of people insist on using prepared toothpaste. Is baking soda okay with you? Just plain old baking soda?
Yeah, baking soda and salt together with a little eucalyptus oil is the best of all.
There you go.